conceptualized and our ETDD automation frameworks. We need people who are good in data analytics, because in any organization, a transformation would mean that if today I am a tester in ETL, what more for me? What progression am I supposed to get in quality engineering? And subject matter experts, which are typically the people who are the domain experts. And lastly, the resources who are looking for, who have the passion to move towards performance. That's the story around the transformational roles. And from a people perspective, any resource would only get attracted to a program like this if you have a catalog very well defined about the various transformation roles you have designed in your organization. This is an analogy that how a typical day-to-day life of a quality engineer actually is there in any agile project. If you see that the quality engineer really needs to understand the user stories, the person needs to understand the acceptance criteria, the person needs to understand from the acceptance criteria how to develop my feature file, and from the feature file what kind of framework should I write. And in this kind of a collaborated model of a quality engineering, if we give the flavor that this is what it means to a quality engineer from a perspective of enablers and tools. If you see, you have all the tools over here covering the various life cycles of a quality engineer. If we are talking about performance, we have JMeter over there. This will connect to the resource in terms of giving him a 360 view that these are the plethora of tools he would actually land up in brushing up his skills and going back to the transformation ladder. We cannot forget the fact that we need to have a well laid down process governance. This slide talks about that it is not about training. It is about the start when a supervisor is actually connecting with the resource to identify and lay down a learning map. Once the learning map is defined, the resource is going back and nominating himself or herself to the program associated with the transformation role which you saw. The third step is that once the training is done, what happens to a typical training? A person gets trained in a tool, and then if there is no implementation, the resource hasn't got the flavor end to end. So an important part of the governance is that once the resource has attended the training of the tool, that person needs to be aligned to a task with respect to the implementation. And again, does this program only talk about the resource getting down and implementing it in the project? Will that bring the effectiveness? I would say no. What is really required is, of course, stakeholder focus as well, because we need collaboration with our various stakeholders. And what is very important is that as a person who is driving the program, or as a person who is attending it, I should be able to appreciate that this is where I was and this is where I reached. So to share that in our organization with this program last year, at the end of last year, when we started, we actually, as I shared, we were very less percentage in automation, and we were able to appreciate the growth that there were resources who have attained themselves in the different progressions of automation, whether it's a beginner or an intermediate or an expert. This gives you the view that actually how many resources have actually attained the experience in automation. What is important for a resource too to appreciate that if you're talking about automation, what skills are you talking about? Are you providing me the tool scenario that whether my resources have attained knowledge on all these tools? For a resource it's important because that gives him the landscape. Another important aspect is that when we are talking about any automation or development, it is important for us to also understand and appreciate that in which skill did I attain my knowledge? Is it only writing scripts or executing scripts? Or I am spending my time towards automation framework? This actually gives you a flavor from a skill perspective that what is the effectiveness you gave back to the organization by running a program like this. And when we are talking about measurement and effectiveness, that's pretty much the topic we are focusing towards. We focused on skills, and I did share with you some of the data which is in a way reflecting the ROI we got from this program. But it's not only about skills. It is also about the fact that when your resources have actually gone back and implemented automation in their projects, they have brought in some reduction, which means that you're actually innately focusing towards reducing the number of QA hours you focused in your earlier projects. So measurement and metrics is about, from a people perspective, skill progression, but from perspective of QA cost, it also gives you a flavor that how many hours did you actually reduce. It also gives you a flavor that how many people you have in your inventory who can be called as performance testers, who can be called as automation engineers, or people who can be called as software development engineer and test. And with that, my story really almost comes to an end. I do have the various training catalogs just to show a sneak preview that how would a training catalog actually look like for the various roles which I showed in my previous slides. And that's all I had. Any questions?
In my experience, most of the manual testers are extremely interested to go into tools, and the easy job is to get people who are enthusiastic. The hard job is, and not even the training, because they are very, very interested, they get trained, they put extra effort. The hard job is to create the right kind of work. So if we see, we do have products also, but most of the work which we do is in services. So it is driven by the client, because automation is an expensive job. You have to have clients buy-in, you have to have the money for it. So how have you tackled this problem? Because in past what we have noticed is that in certain projects there is room for automation, or there is, let's say, TDD being done where you could or involve, but typically a TDD should be done by the developer, right? So how have you generated more automation work, or that is the aspect I would like to know.
So first of all, very relevant question, Shubhra. Now, yes, you are right. In every project, there will not be an innate need for a person to automate or march towards the agile journey. And I want to share a case study from my organization. We have 40% of our resources working in legacy apps, which are mainframes. The innate probability of those applications going on to agile is lesser than the portals where you have the innate opportunity of going into automation is much more lesser in legacy. Now, this question is very relevant because there are resources. When we actually go for these open forums, there are resources who come with the same questions, that I don't have that much automation opportunities in my project, so how will I use this training? So that is why I said that in an organization, everybody will not march towards automation. For those resources who are in legacy apps, they need to focus on brushing their domain skills. So that is the immediate resolution which we suggest to those resources, that even to automate very well, what is more important is to brush up your domain SME skills. The second, now, any tool training a person attends, the person doesn't become an expert. So that is why another thing which we did in our organization is that once you attend the basic skills of the automation, you are ready to take an evaluation test to be part of a Coders Hub, where we have many such initiatives in a testing organization wherein you need to develop certain utilities. For example, if you want to develop something on test coverage, or you want to build something on predictability, you need people who have the passion, who are in legacy, but still want to code. So that's the platform for them. We have projects where we are asking these resources to apply for that assessment test, be part of that Coders Hub, give them projects, and that's how we are able to also satisfy the interest of those resources who really don't get satisfied with the fact that, oh, build your automate skills only. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. And what is the proportion, in your organization between the skills?
So, as I said, I manage a team of 200. So, in that 200, I shared that how many percentage of people we were able to upscale in 1 year in automation. As I said, we have around 800 people in testing, and out of those, 40% is legacy. So it's a big chunk. So question is very relevant, and that is how we tackled it, and it works.
Thank you.
Any other question?
So my question here is that your presentation revolved around how we can transform from a QA to a quality engineering process, right? Now, a very significant part of what you presented was that a QA needs to shift left. I mean, graduating from a QA to an SDET. So, I mean, what kind of vision do you have? I mean, if there is a developer as well as SDET working in a team, how do you see them working in tandem with each other? I mean, what kind of roles and responsibility do you expect from an SDET? I mean, should the person have access to the source code, or how do you envision that?
I will share again the case study which we practiced. So, at the beginning of this year, I did not have any SDETs. I did have, in every testing organization, you will have, I think maybe 1 or 2% of developers. So, we used multi-pronged approaches. First, what we did was, we went into the market, we brought in certain SDETs. And again, to your question, what is the skill and what do we expect? So we typically look for people who have experience in Java, Selenium, web service. And what are they working on? The next part of your question. Now, in any shift left which I need to do, the first and foremost thing for any agile project is that, is my user story complete? Do I have the right acceptance criteria defined against it? So, the first level of job which these SDETs do for me is to participate in the grooming sessions with the SAs and help in defining the acceptance criteria well against my user story. That's the first level of KRA they have. The second, now these people are coming with Java, Selenium, web service. So essentially, what they do is, once they have the acceptance criteria in Rally, we are using Eclipse as our editor. So they actually bring in those acceptance criteria into the Eclipse and they start developing the feature files. And that's where their use of Java skills actually gets used. And that's the KRA of the SDET. That we should be able to develop a ATDD automation framework which works for APIs, which works for UI, which works for mobile, and this is all the responsibility of the SDET. Now, that does not mean that the automation which was there in the project goes extinct. It doesn't. To mature any ATDD CI framework, so today I can claim that we do have a mature ATDD CI framework, but there is a transition towards it. I'm already sitting in April. We still need our automation engineers who had developed our frameworks in QTP to still be there till the time my mature ATDD CI framework is into play. So SDET is responsible for developing these ATDD CI frameworks. They are responsible for even doing the training. I am also utilizing them to do the training of the future resources who will be my extended pool. So now,